Hello, heathens. Thank you so much for joining me. And today we are going to cheers with the coffee to 2024. This is my 2024 kind of wrap up. These are my highs, my lows. I have taken some of the questions of, I know a lot of people have been doing kind of year-end tags, and there's loads of questions and tag kind of questions floating around, and I like some of those, so I've kind of incorporated those. But I'm going to be talking about my favorites, my least favorites, my disappointments, my surprises, all of that good stuff. So kind of wrapping up the year, plus also talking about 2025, what my plans are, reading channel plans, that sort of thing. So sit back, relax, grab yourself a coffee, grab your favorite bookish themed sweater, and join me on a wrap up of 2024. So this year has been a really good reading year for me. I've really kind of gotten back into reading in the second half of the year. So in the beginning, I wasn't doing that. I was focusing a lot on like making clothes and that kind of thing. So I love clothes. I do that as well. That's one of my other hobbies. So I was focusing on that. And then the second half of the year, I really kind of got back into reading again, and obviously restarting my channel. And thank you all again so very much for subscribing and watching. It really does mean the world to me, because I love doing this and I love talking about books, and nobody in real life wants to talk about books with me. So I just stand here by myself in my flat talking to my phone, and people actually watch, which is amazing. So thank you. So it has been, I think, on balance, a really good year. I was kind of going, I'm not a very good stat keeper, right? One of my resolutions for next year: keep better stats, really kind of remember what, like write it down. I've got kind of a reading journal, but again, very sporadic. I need to get better at that. But from the stats that I did take, I was looking at those and I realized that I'd given a lot of books 5 stars, like 4-star, 5 stars. I had a lot of really great reads that I really enjoyed. And again, something for next year, I think I'm not a massive fan actually of like the star system. So I don't know if I should try something different, or maybe explain a bit more how I do my star ratings, because I feel like a lot of my rate, depending on what I'm reading, the rating can literally just be how much I enjoyed the book, how much fun I had reading it. And put that up against something like a non-fiction book that's supposed to be educational. It doesn't really make any sense. So I'm going to have a little think about that, how I actually categorize and rate my books. But just by using the star system, there were a lot of books that I really liked. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I'm more and more honing my reading taste. And I think, like I said in my video where I talked about the books that I liked the least this year, or kind of my worst books of the year, I literally want to get to the end of the year and go, I don't have a video like this to make because I loved everything I read. I'm not somebody that purposely will go out to read or consume any media art that I don't enjoy. I go into everything thinking, I'm going to enjoy this. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you're wrong, right? You just don't, like, what you were sold doesn't necessarily match. So, or you think you're going to like something and you don't. So it happens, but it's not something I do purposefully. So I think that's part of the reason why I've had quite a good reading year. And that is definitely something, stop, so I'll continue. That is something I absolutely want to continue to 2025, is really just making sure that I buy and read the books that I absolutely think I'm going to love and I enjoy, without, again, something to stop in 25, being overly influenced as well. Now, I like reading popular books because sometimes I want to know what it's about, what the hype is about. And I actually have a video coming up with that. I'll talk about that a bit later. But I really just want to kind of get to, this is the stuff that I like. It's me, right? It's my taste. Having said that, I have been influenced a few times this year. And one of the times is, I'll start off with my most disappointing book of the year, get that out of the way, and then we'll kind of move on. This is an author, and don't come for me, don't hate me. It just didn't work for me, and I think it's a soft DNF. You'll see in a second. So it's an author that is incredibly popular. Everybody loves this author. I personally have never really felt the need to pick his books up because it's not really my kind of thing. So the author I'm talking about is Brandon Sanderson. I know. And I know people love him. And, nothing against anybody that loves Brandon Sanderson. But his books have never really, I've tried a couple, and it just doesn't, that very kind of high fantasy, war, epic, 6 million page book thing, it just doesn't appeal to me, right? It's not my taste. But everybody said, Tressa the Emerald Sea, try this. You'll probably like this a lot more. And in fairness, I did get pretty far into the book. So like I say, I did get 200 pages. Yeah, I always give a book 100 pages at least when I'm reading something, because I just feel like you've got to give it a proper chance. And I did get very far into it. And don't get me wrong, it's not objectively a bad book, and I can see why people like it. But I started reading it, then I picked up something else in favor, and something else, and something else. And this has been sitting on my nightstand probably for 4 months now, kind of gotten to the point. And then I picked it up, I read a little bit more, put it back down. And I've just had nothing said to me, pick this up and finish it, right? And it just didn't grab my attention the way other books have. So this is a soft DNF for now, because I still feel like the storyline should really appeal to me. What I did really enjoy was that kind of snarky sense of humor, because, like I've mentioned a million times, Nevernight by Jay Kristoff is probably my favorite fantasy series, and he uses a lot of that snarky humor in it. So I like that, but I don't know, something about it just did not connect with me. So I will try this again, I think, when I've got a gap or when I really feel like it. But I also know that I should not be picking up any Brandon Sanderson. And actually on that, there are another lesson that I've kind of learned this year, is that there are certain authors, and I think I mentioned it in my previous video about the books I didn't like, that I really just shouldn't be picking up anymore. And I try Esty Gibson, Grady Hendrix. There's just some authors that I keep kind of trying because I think I'm going to like them, and I'm just disappointed every time. So that's a thing that I'm going to hone, is not pick up books that I find disappointing. Then let's go to some of the books that, well, two of the books that I kind of were the biggest surprises for me. So these are two new to me authors, and I picked up these books without that much expectation, just kind of thinking the synopsis sounded really cool, and they've become two of my favorite reads of the year. So the first one, and I've mentioned this one quite a lot, is Bitterthorn by Kat Dunn. Kat Dunn's got a new book coming out next year in February, I think, called Hunger Stone. I cannot wait for that. That sounds incredible. But Bitterthorn is just this beautiful gothic tale of this witch and this girl that she takes as her companion in this sentient, crumbling castle. And it's kind of like a fairy tale retelling, but it's really dark, it's really lyrical, it's really beautiful. I think a lot of people would say nothing happens in this book, but just the character study and the emotions that this book invoked in me were just, I mean, I was crying my eyes out at this book. I loved every second of it. I am definitely going to read it again. And again, it's very rare that I think I want to read a book again. So this Kat Dunn has really just been a revelation for me. And she, like I said, now I cannot wait for her new book, and I cannot wait to see what else she writes. I am reading some of her backlist books. I will say that what I'm reading at the moment is like a YA fantasy series set around the French Revolution. And I'm liking it, but I don't think I'm loving it as much as I love this. I just felt like this was a level up in terms of the writing, and it's more sort of new adult than it is kind of YA. I think that one is more younger, but it's still, she still writes beautifully, and I'm kind of enjoying my time with it, but not as much as this. But this was such a surprise. I just literally picked this up on a whim because, you know, I mean, look at the cover. Why would I not pick it up? And just loved it. Absolutely loved it. And then the other one is this book. This is Malice House by Megan Shepherd. Now, first of all, fabulous cover. Second of all, again, I picked this up after reading the synopsis. It just sort of randomly popped up. And I am now, again, attempting to read just about everything Megan Shepherd. I do have the second book. So this is kind of like a duology. So the second book is called Midnight Showing. And that's on my list of like must read in January books. So I just absolutely cannot wait to get back into this world. But this book is like a mixture between a family drama, a magical realism style of book, and then it really just goes into fantasy, it goes into dark fairy tale territory. And it's about a girl whose father dies. He was quite a famous author, and he passes away and leaves her Malice House. And when she goes to kind of clear it, she finds sort of a story that he started to write. And it was really strange. It's like this really, really dark fairy tale. It's called, I think it's called like Fairy Tales or Bedtime Stories for Adults, but it's like really dark. And she's like, well, this isn't what my father used to write. And she's an illustrator, and she thinks, you know what, I'm going to illustrate these drawings. And all sorts of weird things start happening in this town. Weird things start happening to her. She doesn't know what's real, what's not, if she's losing her mind. And it's just incredible. It's like a thriller, like it's a dark gothic fantasy thriller, all sorts of these. It's just such a genre mashup, which again is something that I really love, and I've realized I really love, particularly also in kind of horror and fantasy when different genres get mixed in. And this is very much that. And I absolutely love this. It's one of my favorite books of the year, and she is a new goddess for me. I'm absolutely reading. I've also got some of her other books that I'm going to read, so I think she's going to be one of my favorite authors moving forward. Then, one of the questions, and I just thought this was interesting, so I'll quickly do it and then move on, was what was the longest and the shortest book you read? So I kind of had a bit of a route around. I think the shortest book I read is Graveyard Shift, and I think this is like under 200 pages. This makes it, I mean, this is essentially a novella. It's 123 pages, really, really short. And then one of the longest books I read, and any opportunity to mention this, although I will say, I don't know if A Court of Mist and Fury is longer than this, but this is 657 pages. So it's a chunker. This is Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Miro, and I love the series. I have started Bringer of Dust, which is the second book, which is even longer than this one. But this world is fantastic. This kind of Victorian, again, kind of dark Gothic Victorian London setting with these magical children and this kind of secret society that gathers all these magical children. You've got like a vampire-esque element in this as well. You've got magic, you've got monsters, you've got found family. Again, this made me cry in places. This series is gorgeous. The second book is shaping up just as well, and I adored this. I adored this so much that I read this softcover. I got this at a charity shop randomly. And I actually went and bought the hardcover of the first book and then the hardcover of the second book because it had just come out. And I just absolutely loved this. So just any opportunity to talk about that. Then I wanted to talk about, I loved this question. One of the questions was, what made you the happiest? So what were the happiest books? Now, you may have noticed, not somebody who kind of reads a lot of laugh out loud style books. My favourite genre is dark Gothic fairy tales. Juniper and Thorn, the lovely Juniper and Thorn over there, is probably one of my all-time favourite books of all time. It is one of the darkest, most gut-wrenching, with so many trigger warnings. You need a wall mural to write them all down in it, but it is a book that I adore. So lighthearted and funny, not really in my wheelhouse, but I do love it when books make me laugh out loud. So it is rare. It takes a lot. It probably takes even more to make me laugh than it does to make me cry. It takes a lot to make me cry. And a lot of these books I'm talking about have made me cry. So I know. If I feel the emotions, and that's why I said star ratings for me are hard, because for me, it's all about the feel. It's about the emotion. Am I connecting with this book? Am I connecting with these characters? Am I actually feeling something? And it's, again, the same across all art mediums. I love art in all its forms. You know, I can appreciate a painting because it's pretty. But if a painting makes me feel something, if a photograph makes me feel something, if I put on a piece of clothing and I actually feel something, that for me is success. So that's why star ratings are a little like, how do you rate emotion? You know what I mean? But there were two books that had me cackling out loud this year. The first one, and this is probably going to come as no surprise, is Long Live Evil. This is so shiny. Every time I hold this up, you can't. It's a great cover, but it's not great for camera. This is Sarah Rees Brennan's Long Live Evil. Can confirm there is a sequel. It's coming out next year, and like September, I think, which is just devastating. But it's coming out, so I'm hopefully before September. I cannot wait. Cannot wait to get back to this world. I want to reread that before I read the second one. So this I read really. This was probably like the first book that I really read, kind of going back into my reading, and it was the first fantasy book I read. And this book means so much to me on so many levels. Not least of which got me back into fantasy, got me back into loving fantasy and loving being in that world. And it is a love letter to fantasy and people that love fantasy. And it's about a girl that she goes and becomes a character in her favourite fantasy series. And I adored it. Sarah Rees Brennan's writing is hilarious. There were so many funny characters and quips in this book that had me laughing out loud. It made me so happy on so many levels. Like I said, it made me laugh because some of the characters are just the Golden Cobra. If you've read all the Viper references as well, snakes, I adore snakes, but all of those references, but like when she's kind of going about this being a pit of vipers and it's really great to be evil. And I mean, all these things just made me laugh so much, made me so happy. And I think a lot of the messages and a lot of the female empowerment in this as well made me so happy. The idea of going into your favorite fantasy series. I mean, that's all I want to do. I want to check out of this life, go live in my favorite fantasy series and just go live in Valaris. But this is just, everything about this made me happier than I cannot even articulate properly. And then the second book, and this is my most, so it's really funny. That was probably one of my first reads. This is my most recent read. I cannot stop gushing about how much I adore Quicksilver. I adore Quicksilver with every inch of my black heart and soul. This book is perfection for me. And not only did it have the Shadow Daddy of the Year, not only did it have the relationship that I cannot get out of my head, the storyline, the characters that I cannot get out of my head, but also it had a character, Carrion, in here who made me laugh out loud so many times. There were so many things, like, I love the banter and the back and forth between, you know, Kingfisher and, like, there's a lot of really fun kind of moments in this book anyway, but Carrion is just, yeah, he just made me laugh so loud. And again, this book made me so happy. I read it in 3 days, massive book. And like I said, the only reason I couldn't read it any quicker was because I just physically couldn't. I had other things, you know, I had to live life and sleep and eat and do all of that. But Callie Hart has written just my favorite book of the year. I cannot wait for the sequel. I cannot wait. I just yeah, it's just yeah. Then, while we're talking actually about Quicksilver, let's talk about my favorite lead characters in books and kind of couples. So another thing that I've very much gotten back into is romantasy. I'm back in my romantasy era. So I will say back because it's kind of like supernatural paranormal romance, and like I said in my video, and I'm gonna make kind of a follow-on video for this, I was talking about Kushiel's Dart, and they have just re-released the books with new covers. They're in my Amazon basket. I will be hitting purchase very soon. I think they're also at Waterstones, but they weren't available at my local Waterstones. It's really irritating, so I might order them. But anyway, that's beside the point. Kushiel's Dart by Jacqueline Carey was one of my favorite fantasy series when I was much younger, and it was really dark. It was really heavy. Again, laugh, cry, all of the emotions, all of the trigger warnings, everything in there. And that was one of the, like, and Laura Hamilton and all of those. So, but I've kind of really kind of gone back into that. So part of the reason for that is I broke and I started reading ACOTAR, and I don't know why I waited so long. Court of Mist and Fury, Court of Wings of Ruin. Oh, those books destroyed me. They absolutely destroyed me. I've got Frost and Starlight to read over Christmas because that is going to be my Christmas book. I'll be reading it on Christmas Day. That's what I'll be reading, because I just want to, after the emotion of the last book, I need, that's like supposed to be like the Christmas novella. So I want to talk about my favorite kind of couples. So also my favorite book boyfriends. So if we're talking about book boyfriends, it can only yes, I mean, Kingfisher is the obvious choice. I would sell my soul for this man. So Kingfisher is one. Then I am currently just finishing the third book in Kingdom of the Wicked series by Kari Maniscalco, and again I'm going to do an entire Kari Maniscalco video because I love that series. I love all her books, and I've been leaving that as like a year-end treat for myself. And again, Wrath, I would do very wicked things for Wrath, Prince Wrath. Also Prince Envy. I'm a big fan of Prince Envy. So I'd say they are my favorite book boyfriends. But who are my favorite couples? So again, do I even have to say Cerys and Kingfisher, right? I'm just going to shut up now about that. But I'll be talking about it a bit more. But then I've got some more. So this is one. So actually, I should also say that this book is, again, one of my most surprising and favorite reads of the year. And this took me on such a roller coaster of emotion. And this is actually the second book by the same author, Lyndall Clipster. I'm going to be talking about both of these. I've talked about them in a couple of other videos, but this is a vampire book, essentially, but it is so much more than that. The couple in here, Ravel, the vampire, and, oh God, what is her name? Yeah, Evelyn. Sorry, Evelyn. I wanted to call it Evie, but because so Evelyn and Ravel are just the intensity of their relationship, the forced proximity to reclutant allies, to friends, to lovers, to betrayal, to just there was so much emotion in this. This story is really carried by the characters, and I love that. And I feel like that's a bit of a hallmark of Lyndall Clipstone's writing, and I adore it. It is so dark, the blood and the bone magic in this. But these two characters, they took me on such a roller coaster. I was rooting for them so much. I fell in love with both of them so much. And they are one of my favorite couples. I kind of wish, I want to go back into this world. This is standalone, but it'll be a book I'll be reading again, and quite soon, which again, unheard of for me. Then I'm also going to mention Lake's Edge. This is my second Lyndall Clipstone book. This is actually the first one I read, but second one in this video. Again, the couple in this. So you've got Violetta and God, what is his name? Rowan. Why do I always forget? I'm really bad with names. I think you've realized that. But Violetta and Rowan. So their relationship, again, it is so, it's kind of forced proximity, because Rowan takes Violetta's brother for reasons with him to his estate, and she won't let her brother go, and she goes with him. And the intensity of the relationship, the fact that this is a bit like a Beauty and the Beast type of story, where Rowan, he's described as a monster. He describes himself as a monster, you know, falling for the boy that is the monster, and seeing what's underneath that. The intensity of this relationship, what these two people will do for each other. It's just, I cried. This was, her books just kill me. They are so emotional. They are so gut-wrenching. The love story is so intense. And I can go back into this world because I have the second book lined up to read that is going back into this world. But I cannot wait. I adore this. This is so dark. This is the darkest of dark fairy tales. Both of these books are just, these are kind of like everything that I love in my books. And then another couple that I adored, and this is Kai and Peyton. So this is Powerless. The banter in Powerless. I haven't read Fearless yet. I'm a little bit scared. A lot of people are saying it's not as good, but I can't wait. I'm still going to read it. I think I'm going to read a bit closer to when the third book is released, Reckless. But the bants in this book. Again, this was another book that made me really happy. It just had me laughing out loud. They're training, it's sexy, it is so much fun. This couple, I love them. And I think, I don't have the books, well, actually I do. So one of the other couples that I love is Isla and Grimm. So, Lightlark. I'm going to be talking about Lightlark a bit more later, but Isla and Grimm from Lightlark. Again, Grimm is the ultimate shadow daddy. Then, of course, you know, Gothic Hana and Dr. Katie. I've talked about those books many times, but Dr. Death and he's and Deverell. Anyway, so I love those. Those are kind of some of my favorite couples. Also, and I think it goes without saying, Rhysand's my favorite shadow daddy. I say that about everybody, don't I? But obviously Rhysand and Feyre. Although I do have a very soft spot for Azriel, and I was rooting for him and Morgan, but yeah. So those are kind of some of my favorite couple. Again, some of my favorite lead characters. So I will say, I mean, like I said, it's not a perfect book, but this book just so the lead character, Raylan Ray, in this book, I love her. I love her guts. I love her spunk. I love her, just her willingness just to be wicked and evil. I love, from Kingdom of the Wicked, Emilia and Wrath, both as main characters. Of course, Sirius and Kingfisher as main characters. I love them. I mean, there's so many. I just could go on and on, but I think those are the ones that kind of really stand out in my head as characters I really loved. I mean, again, Juniper and Thorn, everything in Juniper and Thorn. Lady Macbeth, I loved Lady Macbeth in Ava Reid's retelling of Lady Macbeth this year. So there's a lot, okay? And then the reason I said I was going to mention Lightlark again was one of the questions was, what's the book with a favourite cover? Again, Quicksilver, I think it really is Kingfisher on that cover. But just to change it up a bit and not talk about Quicksilver for 5 seconds, I think Alex Aster gets the best covers. Even before I read these books, I would walk past them and go, that's a really great cover. And to be completely honest, I bought this first book because it was on sale randomly for like £3 at Waterstones for reasons I do not understand. It said it was damaged and it's not, as you can tell. But it's gorgeous. The covers speak to me. So, I mean, if you look at that, I don't know if that's picking that up. That's the first book. that's the second book with the kind of the city in, so Nightbane, one of my favorite books of the I'm gonna do a whole and Sky Shade. This is a special edition, but like how beautiful is that cover. And then also I've got the special edition of Lightlark over there, which is just stunning. It's one of my favorite special editions. So I do think that Alice Aster gets the best covers. I love her covers. So that was kind of some of my wrap up of the year. And what I want to talk about is kind of moving forward. So 2025, like I said, I'm doing what I love. I'm reading what I love. I don't care what, I want to shut out the noise. I just want to read and enjoy what I love. I read mainly for pleasure and for enjoyment and to escape. And that's absolutely what I'm going to continue to do. Horror, fantasy, romantasy, dark, gothic, fairy tale, fantasy. That's I love dark academia, witches, vampires, devils. Give me all of that. That is the supernatural. Fae, have always been a lover of fae. I keep saying Holly Black's Tithe is still to this day one of my favorite books of all time. One of the books I've reread the most out of all the books I own. And it, all of that. So you'll be seeing loads of that. I also love, what I've really gotten into is fairy tale retellings, especially on the darker side, but just fairy tale retellings and kind of magical things. And I've read a whole host of books. I just reread Caraval, so I'll be doing a video on that because I wanted to read Spectacular, but I wanted to reread the whole series. It's better on a reread even. But books in that vein. And I'll do a video kind of recommending books if you liked Caraval. So I'll be doing a lot of that. Also, Sarah J. Maas, opinions, whatever opinion you have. And like I said, ACOTAR is one of my favorite things in the world. And I remember, so I've literally picked up these two, and I actually found them in a charity shop, which is really cool because they've, again, been in my basket for a while. But this is Sarah J. Maas, Crescent City, and this is House of Earth and Blood and House of Sky and Breath. I think that's the second one. I actually read this book, the first one, when it came out originally. It was during the time we don't talk about anymore. I read this, and I think because of my state of mind at the time, I remember liking it, but I cannot remember the detail. 2020 wasn't a good time. So I want to reread this and continue and read the entire series, because I actually really like urban fantasy, and I feel like this is gonna, I have this overwhelming sense of remembering I did enjoy it, but I just can't remember anything. So this is very high on my list, is to read The Crescent City. And then I also actually have a special edition that I found in a charity shop again, which is really great. If I can find it, she can't, oh, she can. Of Throne of Glass. So again, everybody who says Throne of Glass is really, really good. So I'm going to be going on a little bit of a Sarah J. Maas binge. I'm also going to be doing a bit of a, reading some of the hyped fantasy romantasy books. So I've read Quicksilver, which I adored. I've got When the Moon Hatched. And then I've also got, getting into my dragon era, I've got these two. So I've got Fourth Wing, which I actually have not read yet. And this is Fear the Flames, which again, I've heard so many people talk about these. They're very much loved in the kind of romantasy genre. So I'm going to be doing a whole video, kind of going to be obviously reading these, and then going to be doing a video on these and kind of my thoughts, and then getting a lot more into kind of my romantasy books as well. I'm also going to be doing a lot of, you don't want to see what it looks like behind you. I'm also going to be doing a lot around kind of gothic fiction. I think I want to do videos like that, kind of talking about genres a bit more, and spotlighting my favourite authors. So I'll be doing a lot of spotlights on my favourite authors, people like Alexis Henderson, Ava Reid, Lyndall Clipstone. So I want to try and do ones that are better known and ones that aren't so well known. And one of my other personal goals is to read more indie published books as well, indie published authors. So Kerry Lake is one of my favourites. Karina Halley is another one that I adore. And I've been reading some of her books, and I want to do an entire video on that. And then I have a lot of books, like I said, in sort of the realm of the fae and magic and dark fairy tale esque books and retellings. So I'm doing a lot of that. I also actually have some books lined up. I love retellings. I love different slants on new things. And I read a lot of Dracula kind of influenced books and retellings this year, which I really loved. And I've got a whole bunch of books here that are some of my favorite original stories, and then they've been retold. I've got a few others. So this is A Rose by Any Other Name. I feel like this may be a kind of like this to do with Shakespeare as well. I think this may be Macbeth as well. Then Sing Me Forgotten is Phantom of the Opera. That's one of my favorite Gothic books ever. Beautiful Villain is, again, one of my favorite books of all time, Gatsby retelling. And then again, Val McDermott, this is Queen Macbeth. This is another Macbeth one, so I'll be doing like videos on that. So it's a lot of that kind of thing. And then my personal reading goals, I don't know if I really want to set a number, because again, I'm not that great, but I do want to keep stats better. I want to keep up to date with my reading journal. I want to write down my thoughts more, because again, sometimes I forget. So I want to, write down my thoughts. I love putting together the reading journals, but I do pages with collages and stuff, and I might actually show you at some point. But obviously that takes time as well. So that takes time away from reading. So it's that vicious circle, right? But I don't want to be like galloping through the books. I want to actually be spending time and enjoying them. And I think my word for the year of 2025 is just enjoy. Just enjoy it. Again, I don't want to be reading books I don't like. I just want to enjoy it. I want to have a good time, and I want to disappear out of my life and into these glorious, wonderful stories and characters, and I want to be, sitting in that townhouse in Valaris, staring at Azrael. So that's me. Have a wonderful 2025. Have a wonderful new year. I'll probably post another video, or another couple of videos, see how I go. But thank you all for watching again. I really, really appreciate it. If you've been here this long, leave me an emoji, any emoji you want. And I will speak to you all again very soon. Happy reading. Bye.